Hello, I'm FX Toycat, and Mojang have decided to rename what looks like basically every item in the game. Why have they decided to do this? The short answer is parity, but they've also decided to change the way that the graphics API works so that now realistic waves are possible, and they've then also brought out an update for the Java edition, which has an interesting controversial feature. Let's go into all of that today, but let's start with all of the names have changed, by the way, because one of the biggest and most controversial ones is, of course, this item right here. Whatever you name it right now, it's terrible, and Jeb agrees. Anyway, the official reason for doing this is in the name of vanilla parity, and one of the first changes they said they made was to change the name of enchantments so that Protection 1 will still be Protection 1, but anything which only has one level, like say Mending, is now just Mending. This enchanted book is not an enchanted book with Mending Eye, it's an enchanted book with just Mending, which is a very intriguing decision to make. They've also changed the book and quill using the ampersand sign into the book and quill. We'll show you all of the old ones using the red text here, and the new one using green, by the way. The chain helmet has been renamed to the chain mail helmet, and you can guess what they've therefore done to the chest plate, the leggings, and then the chain mail boots as they're now known. But the enchanted apple has also been renamed to the enchanted golden apple, and like I've mentioned, quite a few other food items are affected. Cooked beef is now steak. This was one of the oddest parity changes for a while to remain that way, because it makes sense. There is cooked pork chops and regular pork chops, and there's beef, and therefore cooked beef, but Minecraft Java said it should be steak, and Minecraft Bedrock said it should be called cooked beef, and as you can see, one of those sides has won over the other. The same is true for melons, which are previously... Actually, we found another fun example. On the changelog, it says that this is called the melon slice, but here I am... Wait, in fact... Oh, this is still cooked beef. What a weird... Wait, is this a language issue, do you think? It says very clearly on the changelog that this should be called a melon slice and this should be a cooked beef, and that this should be an enchanted golden apple. But yeah, I don't see it being called that, huh? Okay, so Minecraft Bedrock betas have had a little bit of a bad habit of listing changes on the changelog that aren't matched in reality, and then a little bit vice versa. There's been some changes like this new screenshot button or the new profile system, which are in the game but not on the changelogs. And one of the interesting examples of this is the fact that even with US English enabled, you can see right here that none of my items have changed names. Only the enchanted book has changed, which is confirming that this is the newest update. You can also check up there, but cooked beef and melons and book and quills and chain boots, none of these have actually changed. But at some point in this update cycle, when they fix things correctly, they'll be changing milk to the milk bucket, they're renaming seeds to wheat seeds, they're renaming snow to the snow block, the glistering melon to the glistering melon slice. Fun fact, it's not the glistening melon, even though we all call it that. We also have the grass turning to short grass, double tall grass turning to regular tall grass, sugar canes turning to sugar cane. This is one of the wildest ones to me. Like, I only realized this recently. Why is it sugar canes? I feel like it really should be singular. This is one of the cases where I think it's objectively better, and so I think as we go through the rest, let's go through and let's destroy the sign to represent which one is better and which one is worse, because looking at clay blocks and clay and sea turtle eggs and stuff, there's a lot of interesting differences here. So let's go through and pick my favorite for all of these. I think that chain works better than chain mail, although chain mail is more accurate, so I'll totally accept that. I think book and quill is just as good as book and quill, except it's more compact, so that's my personal favorite. I think the enchanted apple gets the point across that it's golden pretty well, but I'll accept enchanted golden is better. Cooked beef is obviously objectively the better one, while as a melon versus a melon slice, I'll admit is an important one. When it comes to seeds versus wheat seeds, this is a bit of an anachronism, so sure, wheat seeds is better. Snow, you don't need to say snow block. We already know that it's a block from the fact that it's in our hand. The milk is also the same thing versus a milk bucket, but I guess you need to clarify the buckets there. Grass and double tall grass is very confusing compared to short grass and tall grass. Sugar canes is also kind of bizarre. You can see right here that most of the new update blocks are actually much better. See, look at this. Clay block turning to clay. This is the right way round to do it, in my opinion. Surely the Java version should be renaming itself to match the whatever, we get the point here. Clay balls are not necessary to say versus clay, because we have the clay block. I think you could go with clay for this and then clay block for that. Now I've made things confusing, but I'm sure you get it. Sea turtle spawn egg versus is turtle spawn egg. Until we get land turtle spawn eggs, I'll accept this one. Brick block should be turning to bricks, sure. Although actually there's a brick item, but that's fine. Never brick block is turning to never bricks. Honestly, what is it with Minecraft and inconsistencies on things like this? Stone brick slabs is turning to stone brick slab, so sure. I think that's a little bit better. Prismarine brick slabs, sure. Red never brick versus red never bricks. I think red never brick makes more sense, right? Although if there's regular bricks now, I'm slightly confused. Then we've got the brick slab versus the brick slab. I think that it's the brick slab, sure, and the infested never stone bricks. Man, it is very interesting, the list of ones they decide to have and not have. I guess infested stone brick would be correct for this one, because you usually find it individually. Daylight sensor, daylight detector. Wow, that is one I never knew was different. I just always assumed that there were two, different words we used in the community. Then we've got enchantment table versus enchanting table. I think enchantment table is logical in some ways, but I'll go with this one. I also think that daylight sensor makes more sense than the detector. A little bit too wordy language. Weighted pressure plate heavy versus heavy weighted pressure plate. I guess, honestly, I think people search for this looking for weighted pressure plates, so these are obviously the better ones. Slightly damaged anvil becomes chipped anvil. Oh, that's so bad. Very damaged anvil becomes damaged anvil. See, that's just needlessly complicated. Head becomes player head. Yeah, I like player head more. Top snow becomes snow. Well, I mean, that wouldn't need to be confusing, as we'll get rid of that. And then light block becomes light. This is a solid one, and I think it's one that they've not already changed, apparently. And then finally, we have the stonemason becoming the mason. Interestingly enough, in yesterday's Ultimate Guide to Trading, if you haven't seen it yet, I actually do refer to him as the mason, and looks like I'm ahead of the time on doing that one, so go me, yeah. I feel like stonemason makes sense, but a mason kind of already covers the snowness, and light block makes more sense than light, because this looks like an item, but it is a block, and so clarifying that is important. Oh, that's real weird, huh? I didn't realize it worked like barrier blocks now. Okay, I'll wait, don't worry. With that said, so that is every single item that they have renamed in the name of Parity for this preview. Huh. What a weird list that is. So they also have made some other changes, for what it's worth. They've renamed the maximum frame rate slider into frame rate limit. They fixed a couple of bugs, and interestingly enough, at least in my opinion, they've decided to split the sponge block into two separate instances. So if you're typing a command, let's say 20 blocks of sponges, now instead of just saying sponge and having two block states, there's sponge and there's wet sponge, which is a big improvement. Oh, I think I might have messed up this a little bit. It's fine. Anyway, the important thing here is that that is a good improvement for technical players. It's one that probably won't affect the majority of you. Something that will affect most people, based on how many of you seem to enjoy seeing the experimental technical stuff though, is the new graphical changes, which we'll discuss right after we go into Java's new surprise update. Because right now, this is a preview for Minecraft 1.21.30.22, but it's for the preview for the update after the next update for Bedrock. But Minecraft Java had an update which we didn't know anything about until today that is coming out seemingly tomorrow. So what's the deal with that? I'll let my good friend, the Java YouTuber, explain this to you. Yo, what's up? It's your boy IBX Medium Salmon Cat with the mustache of a 14-year-old to talk to you about 1.21.1 because it has officially entered release candidate status, and so a new update is coming to Java without any snapshot. It has only two features, neither of which you're going to be playing with, but one of which has some interesting political connotations. What are those? And also, why is 1.21.1 out so much later for Java than Bedrock? Well, there are 5 very good questions you'll probably have to ask, and I'll answer them as quickly as I can so that you can get back to playing on the one Minecraft server we have, or building on top of your Nether. And so let's go with the first one. What came out today? 1.21.1 release candidate 1. This means that they have skipped the snapshot process and instead have said, yeah, we have an update that's ready to go as soon as possible, and it only really says that it does 2 things. The first of these is the fact that they are fixing critical exploits. This is very vaguely worded, and they say right after it, if no other issues are found, then 1.21.1 can be expected to release later this week. There are only 2 more days that they would release it, and it's most likely therefore going to be out tomorrow if whichever exploits they fix don't break the game anymore. But then the other change, which they do officially describe, is adding language support for Tzotzil and also Belarusian in Latin. So Tzotzil is a very small minor language in Mexico for a couple 100,000 speakers, and Belarusian is a language which already exists in Minecraft, so why are they adding it again? Well, there's some some interesting connotations to that we'll come back to after we explain why is this happening now. I think the best hint we can get is what they say after they're fixing critical exploits, which they don't explain anywhere, by the way. There's no changelog of like what bugs they fixed, there's no bug tracker links, there's no explanation about what they're fixing, but instead something has come up that is so important, they've gone straight from we're going to fix this to release candidate to releasing it in the same week. This makes me think it is a very, very big issue. I mean, they usually describe it as critical, but it's something they'd rather fix first and then explain later if they're going to explain it at all. And so the why of this is just there is something very critical to roll out, and so why not roll out anything else that's finished? And presumably that's where the language support comes in. And so why is that language support so interesting? Well, I think this is a topic that is maybe beyond the realm of a Minecraft YouTuber, but the good news is I know someone who's good at the geopolitics, so quickly go speak to him. Hello, it's me, Toycat. I run the geography channel, IBX2Cat, where we talk about geography, politics, geopolitics, and history, all the nerdy stuff about countries and how the world works and stuff. I love to talk about them and share my passion for them, and today it turns out that there's a little link to Minecraft, so let's talk about what it is. Basically, in the Belarusian language, in most languages in Europe, there is a script that needs to be chosen, and the vast majority of them use the Latin alphabet. This is the one that you're familiar with if you speak English, because it's the 26 letters in your alphabet, plus maybe a few more, but it's the alphabet that you're mostly familiar with over here. But in Eastern Europe, outside of Greece, which uses its own alphabet for fun reasons, most Eastern European countries have some Cyrillic alphabet going on there. A lot of countries are slowly trying to phase theirs out, but there is a Cyrillic alphabet in the Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. Basically, the closer to Russia you go, the more likely it is you use what could loosely be described as a Russian alphabet, but obviously actually descends from the Greek alphabet, fun fact. And this extra alphabet is why if you've ever looked at Moscow, but in Russian, it's not actually Moscow, it's like Mokba. That's because they use that weird B and a lot of the letters used, if we look at a name like this, it doesn't look like a language you're familiar with because it isn't. It is not only Russian, but written in the Cyrillic script. So it's not just a language you don't know, but it's in characters you don't know. At least when you go to, say, Poland, you don't need to know the Polish language to have a good chance at saying now skalmi zesie. You know, you can at least get close to the pronunciation, or at least trying to write it down or say someone. But if you try to describe the name of this town right here, then you're not going to do a very good job, because what even is that? You know, like it's an N-looking character, then an O, then a weird A, then an O, then a backwards N again, then a B, then a C, then a K. The point is to say is that the alphabet is much harder to understand as a non-Russian speaker, or at least a non-Cyrillic script speaker, and so a lot of countries that formerly were part of the USSR, where the official policy was Russification and moving the alphabet towards Cyrillic, a lot of countries that were in that sphere previously have moved away from it. So you can see, interestingly here, Kazakhstan is a very unique example where they are specifically, explicitly moving their language from the Cyrillic alphabet, where it is currently written, into the Latin one exclusively. And so if we look at Kazakhstan places, right now you can see it says Astana, and then again it's in Cyrillic, but they're slowly moving away into fully Latinizing their language. This is because if you are in Cyrillic, it helps your trade and your connection with Russia, but Latin is obviously the language. If there is one language you speak in the world outside of your own, it's probably English, which is in the Latin script, and so it helps a lot of foreigners to understand your country and maybe want to do good things with it. And so that is why Kazakhstan and indeed Uzbekistan are slowly moving away from the Cyrillic alphabet. Look at that, Tashkent, there's no Cyrillic here found whatsoever, and this is something which is slowly occurring all over the world. So why is Belarus spicy and interesting here? Well, Belarus is doing the opposite. Belarus is specifically moving away from the Latin alphabet, which used to be way more prevalent in the 1930s and 40s. They're moving away from that alphabet and closer towards the Cyrillic one. This is a very bizarre decision to most people, but the reason they're doing it is basically as a renewing of ties to Russia. Belarus is one of the last dictatorships in Europe, or rather, it's really the last dictatorship. I know there's a lot of other countries you might say claim that, but literally they've had one ruler since their formation as a country, and he says, yeah, I'll rule this how I want. I don't care how unfair the elections look. I'm in charge. You're dealing with it. And so as a result, having a very strong ally is more important to Belarus than maybe being friends with the rest of Europe, and so they are deliberately weakening their link to that rest of Europe, and one of the ways they're doing it is by slowly de-Latinizing their country and slowly moving over to the Cyrillic alphabet. And so if you were, say, against the Belarusian regime and, say, against the Russian regime, then you might actually speak the Latin alphabet. It is very, very fringe. It is something which isn't necessarily very popular there, but slowly more people are moving away away from the Cyrillic alphabet and into the Latin one as an act of resistance. And so if, say, a giant video game, let's say one based over here in a country which maybe is also not on the best terms of Russia, maybe if they included the Belarusian but with the Latin alphabet, it would allow more people to learn and speak it in that form, which would help Belarus's connection to the West, something which is good if you are on the side of not the dictator in Belarus. It's an interesting thought at the very least, and that is, you combine that with, say, the Java tech lead having some very strong anti-Russia opinions, for good reasons. You know, being pro-Ukraine is a very reasonable stance to have in 2024, I think, but couple those things together and you'll understand why adding a new language is probably more political than anything else, because there aren't a lot of speakers in Belarus who don't understand Cyrillic, but moving over to the Latin alphabet is one which has, weirdly enough, some political ties to it. So that is the answer to this question. I'll go get the IBX Salmon Cat back for Medium Salmon Cat, did he call himself? Never heard of him, to be totally honest. I know a lot of people confuse me with that Toy Cat guy, but I've never seen him in the same room as me. So yeah, I'll go get the medium salmon guy back, and we'll finish explaining. Wow, that was very well explained, other human being who is not me. The only thing I wish you could do is explain it for 20 more minutes and make it into a whole video. Anyway, the next question you might have is, why is this update with its interesting set of features coming out later than the Bedrock equivalent? 1.20.1 came out there a while ago. Well, 1.21, basically the Java and Bedrock naming systems are entirely different, which is why Bedrock is working on 1.21.30 while Java is on 1.21.1. It's not that there's been 29 updates in the meantime, it's just the updates are named differently and have different priorities. Bedrock aims to release an update every month and a half to 2 months, whereas the Java edition just releases an update when they feel like it, and when they feel like it is right now. So what is coming next? 1.20.1.2. This is likely going to be the Java update, which adds the Bedrock features such as the new rooms, which I made a video on Sunday, or I didn't make a video on those, I should say, but instead that weird guy, Mr. IBX Toycat did. I guess I'll go find him because he needs to tell you about the rest of 1.21.30. Okay, it's me, IBX Toycat, back again to tell you something very exciting I think you need to know, because Minecraft has been working on experimental creator APIs for a while, basically trying to build the concept of shaders but into vanilla Minecraft. This has been going kind of well so far, and the end result is going to be one that will allow you to have shader style content but just enableable with a single click for a texture pack in Minecraft. It's one which they've been working boldly towards, and it's one which took a huge step forwards today, and let me show you through Luminous Streams. This is by Poggy is Lit. They literally updated it within minutes of the preview and beta being out, but let me show you the incredible things that it does. So to enable these, you need to have a pack that enables it. It won't be built into vanilla Minecraft itself, or rather it's in vanilla Minecraft, but you won't be able to experience it in vanilla Minecraft itself. So you need to first of all have the pack that enables it, then you need to enable experimental settings, then once you're in your game you need a third level of experimental toggles, because you need to go all the way down here to graphics mode and set to deferred technical preview. This can be done even on an Xbox like I'm playing on right now, but there's a bunch of options you want to play around with, such as brightness for example, but basically, yeah, and also I think you probably also want to up your render distance to a slightly higher number, but once you've done that you'll be able to experience the better looking water, and wow, isn't this a drastic change? Not only to the rest of the lighting, I think some things like the shadow over here are always impressive, but the way they've changed water is insane in its own level. So they've added waves and also changed the water from just being a bland texture that gets repeated over and over again to being a big sea of water, actually kind of making sense in that way. The fluids have changed drastically, and the weird thing about this is this looks way more realistic, but in my opinion, compared to most of the other changes that look kind of good by themselves, this one looks strange because it looks realistic around a set of things that aren't necessarily perfect. I think the refraction from the water just feels odd. It doesn't feel like it's working correctly. The way the light's reflecting on the surface also just feels a little bit buggy. I guess that's meant to be clouds, but the waves are causing the clouds to do some very, very weird things. Maybe this would look great when you get used to it, but for me, it's a very strange experience to go from in the water, seeing some weird things on the top, to being on top of the water just like this, and being slightly in it looks even worse. This is something I'm sure they'll fix with the previews and betas, but this is what the water will look like like, and as I understand it, this is just a setting that any any texture pack will be able to just turn on if it's using the deferred technical preview, and that is something which will likely be coming out to Minecraft much later than the rest of 1.20, 1.30, because that is the next Minecraft Bedrock update, so that means it's not coming out in August as we're expecting for our 1.20, 1.20, but instead will be coming out maybe at the end of September, and but even in that later update, you probably shouldn't expect to see this in there, but it is something very exciting to follow. It's something that immediately makes me want to play some Minecraft with it on, maybe do a rare items run, but with some beautiful stuff. What do you think? Wouldn't it be fun to go looking for shipwrecks like this? Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something new from it, and consider subscribing if you want to stay up to date with the latest in Minecraft Bedrock updates. Seriously, I think it has to be said that the Bedrock version of the game is not just keeping up with the Java for the most part, but is also adding all of the parity changes, such as new items and new rarities and stuff, while also making huge changes to things like this to make the game look better overall, and that is something that should be applauded. The amount of work that comes from Bedrock is significantly increased. It's just not necessarily always exactly where you'd expect it to be, or maybe even would want it to be, but that's a point for another time. For now, I'm just going to say, watch out for lava, because I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Oh, this is very weird.